Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good. Happy Thursday. Happy hour. Thank you for being here tonight. Come on in the room, get settled. We will start in just a moment. Um, Actually, let me pause this because I don't know if he copyright strikes, and I really don't want to find out. But I am trying to study my Bad Bunny lyrics in preparation for Sunday. I didn't even care about the Super Bowl until he won the Grammy of the Year for the Album of the Year. And now I feel like an obligation to at least know the lyrics to at least one or two of his songs so that I can follow along and sing along on Sunday. Hello, everybody. I am Soleil. I am the cover mother of Vision of Dawn Tour. I am the founder and facilitator of the Charm School Mentorship Program. I am your weekly reader, and I'm a dope bitch straight up out of Oakland. Hello, hello, hello. We are here for a happy hour segment this week. And happy hour is where we come together, we shoot the shit. Same thing you would do in happy hour with your friends, your coworkers, people in your life. We get together, we have a drink, and we talk about what's going on in the zeitgeist, what's going on in popular culture. And because I am a priestess and this is a predominantly spiritual channel, I try really hard. You know what? I'm not going to exaggerate. I don't try really hard. It's easy for me. I try to tie these things into spiritual and cultural lessons that we need to learn, because there's no point in just gossiping idly. We might as well figure out how we can learn from the mistakes and the pitfalls or the head bumps of other people so that we don't bump our own heads, right? So we got to talk about what I have dubbed, what I have coined as the Baddie to conservative Mule pipeline. We have to have this conversation about what the hell is going on with these women who have made their careers off of, sexual freedom, hypersexuality, slut walks, right? Having the nickname or the moniker Minaj, right? Basically making their careers and their bread and butter off of having these really aesthetic, hypersexualized identities, only to now, when times get tough and they no longer are able to capitalize on the trend, are now allowing themselves to be these tokens that are paraded out and manipulated by the Republican Party, right? We got to talk about it. And here's the reason why I want to talk about it, because I'm going to be honest, I try really hard not to talk about that Trinidadian woman because her fans are nutcases, and I don't want anybody coming in my comments and calling me all kinds of names for 10,000 years over some bullshit, right? But we do have to talk about this theme because an unfortunate reality, something that I'm really, really clear on, especially with this transit of Neptune going into Aries, they will not be the first. They will not be the last. They aren't the first, and they will not be the last, unfortunately. Okay, so I do have some notes, and I want to talk about it for a little bit. But before we do that, make sure you like the video as you come into the room. If you are not already subscribed to my channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that when I do go live in the future, you will be aware of it. Hello, Nicole. Hello, Tiffany. Hello, Chantel. Thank you all for joining tonight. Who else is here? I think we have two Tiffanys. So, hey, Tiffany P and hey, Tiffany M. That's how I'm going to refer to you guys for tonight so that I don't confuse you. I've done that before. I've given a reading to one Tiffany thinking I was speaking to the other Tiffany. So I'm going to have to try to be deliberate about separating you. So for now, until I think of a better... okay, I'll just call you Johnny. I'll just call you Johnny because that's what I remember. I was calling you that for years because I didn't understand that your name was Tiffany. So if it's okay with you, I'll just call you Johnny when we're on here. So Johnny and Tiffany, that'll help me keep it separate. But yeah, I really, also, what are you drinking tonight? I'm drinking rosé. It's Thursday, so that's a typical thing for me. But let's get into the conversation. Let's talk a little bit about this dynamic. Here's the thing. Baddies are never, because baddie is such an aesthetic classification, baddie is not like hoochie. Hoochie is a lifestyle. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you guys know that I'm huge fans of Hoochie Khan and the Hoochie Historian. I think there's a really particular way that like Black female working class femininity is just gorgeous and beautiful, and I celebrate it, right? But the baddie aesthetic is an interesting thing in and of itself. And whenever somebody brands themselves on a baddie as being a baddie, right, we have to understand that that is an identity that in and of itself is fleeting. Why is it fleeting? Well, when we think of baddie culture, we are thinking about identities or cultures that are built on visibility, desirability, and the attention economy, right? None of these things are rooted in actual power. None of them are. So whether it's Nicki Minaj, who branded herself as the baddie of Young Money and the first lady of Young Money, whose identity has always been heavily rooted on being the only woman in the room, right? Or whether it's Amber Rose, who literally for the first half of her career, we never heard her speak. She didn't have a fucking voice, right? A lot of her desirability was rooted in this quote unquote mystery, but it was being a beautiful woman who never spoke, right? And think about the way that the male gaze works. That benefited her. That worked in her favor for a tremendous amount of time, right? Again, these are identities that are not rooted in actual power. Now, that may be cute when you are very young, when you are in your 20s and you don't really care about certain things. But once you get into your 30s and your 40s, once you become a mother, right? Once you become someone who's done all this hard work to create businesses and people are still belittling you, right? They're still not speaking to you in a way that is rooted in power. That shit gets old really, really fast, okay? And the reality, whether we not like it or not, conservatism, especially in the United States, grants a lot of access. It grants access to power, to money, protection, a lot of platforms that these women would not have if they did not submit to this party. Let's be real, right? So we see this really interesting pipeline that starts with hypersexual visibility, right? Looking at Amber's early career as being Kanye's girlfriend, looking at Nicki's early career, copying Lil' Kim, doing a lot of really sexually suggestive poses and all these other things, right? So hypersexual visibility. And it worked for them. It garnered them a lot of attention. It got them a lot of money, but it also caused audience fatigue, right? What's one of the first things that people started saying about Nicki Minaj? We're tired of hearing you say everybody's your son. We're tired of hearing you rap about your pussy, right? Similar thing with Amber. Who are you outside of who you date, right? So the same thing that got them a lot of space within the attention economy, which is their hypersexual visibility, also led to audience fatigue. It also wore people out. It made them tired. It made them really exhausted. It made them very, very willing to throw them away and toss them out, right? And again, because these are careers that these people were building, it also led to them having a lot of relevance anxiety, right? Being afraid of being pushed away, being afraid of being forgotten, right? You see this a lot with Nicki Minaj and her obsession with being understood as the queen and the mother baddie, the mother baddie, right? Nicki having this deep concern with making the women who follow in her footsteps bow down to her. That is an anxiety about her relevance, right? Because you don't see Shaka Khan cussing out Beyonce and Kelly Rowland. You don't see her doing that. You don't see Patti LaBelle constantly checking Olivia Dean or all these other girls, right? Because they understand who they are. They don't suffer from relevance anxiety. But they also did not build their careers on hypersexuality, right? But Nicki, who built her career on hypersexuality, even though she's deeply talented, because that's the conundrum, right? It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. When you lead with sex, sex is a beautiful thing, but it's fleeting, right? It's fleeting. And so they started these careers with hypersexual visibility, which led to audience fatigue. They then suffered from relevance anxiety, and they started to hyperperform things that were inauthentic to them, right? So Nicki with her obsession with being the mother baddie, Amber with the false feminism. I remember when Amber started doing the slut walks. It low-key pissed me off. And I knew that she was watering down a feminist socio-political movement that actually meant a lot to other people, right? So these slut walks that originated as a response to sexual assault and harassment, women claiming through protest their safety and identity. Amber Rose basically took it up, co-opted it, and turned it into a fucking festival, right? And she rode that out. I knew intuitively when she did it. She's going to ride this out until she can't make any money off of it anymore. And what did she do? She rode out the slut walk concept until people got tired of it and they didn't want to show up to it anymore. So Amber in particular, this is not the first time that she's piggybacked off of a socio-political movement in order to make money. And I think that because people associate feminism with sluttiness, I know that's controversial, but I live in the South now, and I hear the way that people, especially Christians, talk about feminism. Conservative, very Christian environments do conflate feminism with hypersexuality in a way that I think is really fascinating, right? I think that because Amber was doing that within the realm of feminism, nobody stopped to critique the way that she was basically co-opting a political movement. So I personally am not shocked that here we are several years later where the money has dried up yet again, and she's just co-opting conservatism because she needs to line her pockets, right? So again, the relevance anxiety, the audience that once loved you, poured a lot of money and resources into you, are now tired of you because of the fatigue. You have relevance anxiety, and this leads to the conservative rebrand, right? You have Nicki out here looking like everybody's Caribbean auntie with a shitty weave that they've glued and shellacked to their head. You have Amber popping up out of nowhere, stepping fetching for fucking Donald Trump. It's embarrassing. And they can say that it's rooted in their actual politics all they want to. Most people see through it. It's because they're broke. It's because they're pick-me's who've gone broke. And what is a pick-me other than a woman who doesn't have any identity outside of being chosen? It's a woman who does not know how to survive without external validation. And when you build your career on hypersexuality and the visibility of hypersexuality, is that not building your career on external validation, right? So we have these women who see the conservative rebrand is nothing more than a financial safety net, okay? There's a bigger theme here about self-betrayal. Self-betrayal. Because the audiences that they claimed to be deeply connected to, that they once claimed to have seen themselves in, they are now openly rejecting. Is money enough to betray yourself? We can ask it as a rhetorical question, but I really want to know for a lot of people. Because here's the thing. Money is only hard to get if you believe it's hard to get. And that's something that I had to learn through my own financial trauma recovery journey, okay? But these women are obviously betraying themselves, betraying their own communities in order to have financial safety. When, good God, you can earn money in so many different ways. You don't have to sell your soul. You don't have to play yourself. But that's what they're doing, right? And here's the thing. I know from experience, I lived in California. I was born and raised in the Bay Area. I moved to Southern California for graduate school. So I lived several years in a very rich, white, conservative environment. I know a lot, unfortunately, about conservatives and how deeply they value a token. But what we have to understand about the danger of being a token is that tokens get spent. Tokens get spent, they get played like you're at a fucking arcade, right? That's just a thing that happens, okay? And the reason why right-wing spaces specifically recruit women of color who symbolize sexual liberation or rebellion is because they represent the ability to make the wildness or make the freedom within a woman submit, right? Okay, it's cute that she was out here doing those slut walks, but now come home to Republican daddy. Okay, it's cute that you was out here talking about your anaconda don't want none or whatever a couple years ago. But come on over here. Come on over here, young lady in need of a green card. And say bad things about Nigerians and other immigrants, right? Conservatives love a token. They really, really love a token. And so it's really important to think about who actually benefits from these alleged transformations that these particular women are having. And they're not the only one. I know Sexy Red is doing some weird shit right now. If you want to, I'm not going to say nothing. But it's such a deep act of betrayal because you have to remember that these women were built by the margins. These women were built by the margins. They were built by the same marginalized communities that they are now abandoning. Nicki Minaj would not have a career if it weren't for the LGBT community. The fact that she even marketed one of her rap personas as a little gay boy who lives inside of her, that gives her the courage to say the nasty, mean things that she doesn't want to say, right? That's why her career or her audience is so filled with young gay men, because you have this gorgeous, rich woman saying, yeah, there's a gay boy that lives inside of me and he gives me the courage to say things other people don't want to say, right? Amber Rose, Spirit told me to say Amber Rose is a dyke. That is so rude. But Amber Rose, before she started dating Kanye West, was known for dating studs and was known for dating other women and was a huge part of sex worker community and LGBTQ community, right? Even the fact that her fans called her mother, calling her mother with a V, using that language from the ballroom scene. These are two women that literally built their identities off of marginalized communities, which are the LGBT community and the sex worker community. Two communities that they are now thumbing their noses at, okay? So this is about the betrayal of their primary audience. I'm nervous tonight. I don't know why. Their primary audiences being Black women, queer folks, sex workers, women who live outside of respectability politics in general, right? I mentioned hoochie culture earlier. A lot of their aesthetics are rooted in hoochie culture. The long nails, the bust down wigs, right? the big, huge earrings, the ornate, colorful lipstick. That's why everybody was walking around for literally a decade wearing chalk pink lipstick because of fucking Nicki Minaj. But those were aesthetics that she stole from women, female rappers, especially in Atlanta. Y'all probably don't even know who Duffy is. But if you knew who Duffy was, and if you went and looked back at her whole aesthetic from the 2000s, you can see how fucking Tokyo Diva, right? Tokyo Vanity. You can see how Nicki lifted a lot of her aesthetics from these women. Other hoochies, other rappers, right? And it's really fucked up because the same audiences that they built their careers off of, they are now rejecting. They're rejecting them as being too political, too poor, dismissing them as bad optics, right? Nicki, once celebrating the young men who would come to her concerts in androgynous clothes, is now on stage with Erica Kirk saying, just be a boy. Be a boy. So how does that make your kin Barbies feel when you say things like that? But again, she's now abandoned her core audience, right? Once her wealth has been secured, and not just is it secured, it's secured in a way where it's given her entree into a community that never really fucked with her. You're sitting on stage with the wife of a man who said that you are a horrible influence for Black children, saying, just be a boy. It's shameful. Not only is it a betrayal of their community, but it's an act of self-betrayal. Because no matter how badly you want to, Nicki, Erica Kirk will never see her reflection in you. The way that the Black girls and boys who supported your career saw their reflection in you. And I think there's a part of you that knows that. I'm talking about this dynamic as it relates to these two women. But again, we, in these conversations in happy hour, our goal is to remember how these things show up in our lives, how we can protect ourselves so that we don't engage in these behaviors, or we can spot them out in other people so that we don't get hurt by them, right? So what are some of the ways that self-abandonment shows up? It's silence when you see other people committing acts of harm. The way that Nicki was silent while her brother was assaulting children. The way that Nicki was silent or even consented in the protection of her husband who's a known sexual predator, right? It's Amber's silence about some of the men in the industry that she's dated that she knows engages in harm against women. Amber, for a long time, has bragged about, it's so much stuff that I know that I don't say, and I don't repeat anything. Okay, that may be good for you in terms of guaranteeing you attention from men, but what have you witnessed that puts women at harm where your voice could have actually saved somebody, Amber? That's not the flex that you want it to be, right? So silence when you are witnessing harm is one of the ways that we can engage in abandonment, in self-betrayal, okay? Engaging in racist or anti-trans, anti-LGBT rhetoric or dog whistles, right? As if those are not members of your community. That's an act of self-betrayal. I'm pretty sure there's not a single person who's watching me tonight that doesn't have a family member that is queer. And whether they are trans, whether they're bisexual, lesbian, gay, whatever they are, whether they are an out person or they're closeted, nobody who's watching me tonight doesn't have a family or community member that's not LGBT. So every time you engage in hate speech amongst that community, you are committing an act of self-betrayal. You can't say you love your family and then say any old kind of shit about them. That's not the way it works. That is abuse. Okay? Lying and saying that you don't care about politics in this day and age where everything is political. That's an act of self-betrayal. Think about all the people who claim that they didn't care about politics, and now they have loved ones being dragged out of their homes by ICE. They're seeing their neighbors get beat up. Claiming to not care about politics because you're afraid to have an opinion, act of self-betrayal, okay? I want to talk about conservatism as a little bit, or just for a little bit, because here's the thing. It is not a political strategy. It is not a political belief system for these women. It's a wealth accumulation strategy. I don't believe that either of these two women, Amber nor Nicki, believe in half of the shit that they're speaking up for right now. I don't. I really don't. I think that they're fucking broke. I think that Nicki married a fucking felon who has restricted a lot of her financial opportunities based on her living environment, based on when and where she can't perform, based on who will allow themselves to even be aligned with her. Notice that since she's been married, ain't been no fucking Beyonce collaborations. I mean, allegedly, I'm just saying, right? I think that her horrible decision in a man has led her to have her financial avenues restricted. I don't think that this bitch, pardon my language, I don't believe that this lady believes in half of the conservative talking points that she is spewing. I think she needs money. And I think that former roads and avenues have dried up. Same thing with Amber. I think that COVID hit in 2020 really taught people a lot of difficult lessons about what they do and don't have. And I think a lot of people who tried to figure out how to survive using OnlyFans, another hypersexual visibility platform that leads to audience fatigue, right? I think when the OnlyFans money started to dry up, she needed some other avenue to have checks coming in. And tap dancing and pussy popping for Donald Trump, allegedly, was a way to get some additional checks to flow in. That is my personal opinion. Conservatism rewards obedient mouthpieces. Okay? Conservatism rewards obedient mouthpieces. Not ideological consistency, not intelligence. Are you obedient? Will you spew our talking points out of your obedience? That's all conservatives care about. Okay? And this is why aesthetic-based celebrities are perfect tokens for the conservative movement, right? They sell feelings, not fact. And they're already brands in and of themselves. They may not sell thoughts, but they have built-in audiences, right? And a lot of the talking points that these aesthetic brands will use aren't even that, they're so whack. So think about the things that they say. Both sides are the same. You got to work hard and not take handouts, right? Nicki has that famous line, I'm a Republican voting for Mitt Romney. You lazy bitches are fucking up the economy. Which makes no sense because even when you look at the statistics, Black women work the hardest and the most of any other racial and gendered population in the world. And Black women made you, Nicki. So are the lazy bitches fucking up the economy? Who are the lazy bitches you're talking to? Right? Another falsehood that they want to spread is that cancel culture is a form of oppression. I hate the language of cancel culture. I really hate it. Because it takes away from what people are actually doing, which is boycotting, which has always been an effective strategy. People don't have to give you their money or their attention if they don't fuck with you. That ain't got nothing to do with cancel culture. You are not a subscription. You're a human being. You'll still live. You just won't have my dollars. And what makes you entitled to my money, right? But this notion that cancel culture is a worse form of oppression than the actual structural and political oppression that people are living through is fucking stupid. But that's one of the talking points that these people like to make, right? And here's the thing, when you make money without community protection, it always comes due. You're going to lose it eventually. So everything that they're gaining right now, it's going to flow through their hands. They're going to be broke again in a few years, right? Pick me politics are very deeply unreliable. Pick me's will never be reliable allies. Because again, pick me's live, breathe, and die off of external validation. And right now, they're breathing the air that comes from the external validation of the conservative party. But once that is done, what are they going to do? They're just going to go straight to the next audience that's going to give them a whole bunch of attention, right? Pick-me behavior is about individual survival. Pick-me's don't care about collective groups. They only care about what serves them. They don't give a fuck about collective liberation. And that's why they will jump ship to any space that pours attention into them, okay? So when we think about some of the core traits of somebody who lives in pick-me politics, we are looking at people who have a willingness to throw other people under the bus. So again, these women are throwing their core audiences under the bus, which is a pick-me thing to do, right? Any of you guys who've ever had a pick-me girlfriend, pay attention to the way that they treat you when a man whose attention they want comes into the room. Y'all think y'all cool, and the next thing you know, they're making all these underhanded jokes about you to try to throw you under the bus to get attention from the man. This is no different. It's just happening on a political scale, right? They also have a constant need to be the exception, right? Look at the way that Nicki is obsessed with having them talk shit about Cardi B. Even though none of these motherfuckers know the difference between her and Cardi B. I've watched multiple different conservative pundits think that Nicki Minaj wrote the WAP song. This the same bitch to them. But the second that they realize the mistake and they correct it and they talk bad about Cardi B, Nicki's pick-me behind, allegedly, lights up, right? But that's a pick-me. Deep need to be the exception to the rule. I'm not like other girls. I'm a cool girl. Pick-me bullshit, right? They also have an alignment with patriarchy for validation. You have to be aligned to patriarchy to say that Donald Trump is handsome. I don't think Donald Trump's mama thought he was handsome. I don't think his wife finds him handsome. The man is built like a sack of potatoes. You can tell that all he eats is fucking Cokes and Big Macs. Did y'all know, I don't know how true this is, allegedly, everything I say is alleged, nothing I say, I'm not real, okay? Do y'all know that it's alleged that the reason why he only eats McDonald's is because he's paranoid about being poisoned? I have heard, and I can't say if it's on good authority or not, but I have heard that part of the reason why he only eats McDonald's and Diet Cokes and shit is because he's paranoid that someone in the Tiffany said But apparently there's a theory that he's paranoid that the chefs at the White House will poison him. Chantel, that's poison in and of itself. You're absolutely right, but it leads to a slow death. It's a slow death. It's not as quick as if they give him, the real stuff. You've heard that too, KFS? I've heard it many times. And it kind of feels right. I'll just say that. I have no proof. I don't know this man. Never met him a day in my life. But it kind of sounds like it makes sense. He knows what poison. Yeah, it's the poison you know versus the poison you don't know. Exactly, right? But here's the thing. Pick-me's can't be trusted in actual movements because they fold under pressure. They negotiate away protections that they don't think that they will need. right? And then once those protections are gone, they will cry and sob about not having them. But they believe that their proximity to power will always be permanent. And here's the thing. What did I say earlier? Tokens get spent. And a lot of people who are in denial about being tokens don't know that they are a token until they get spent, right? The danger of aesthetics over ethics is that aesthetics are trendy and they change over time. Just 7 years ago, we were still wrapped up in the BBL baddie aesthetic. And now everybody is Ozempicing themselves into a size 0 and removing their ass implants, right? Aesthetics are trends and they change over time. There is no permanence. When image replaces integrity, it puts you in danger because you have no ethics to ground you and to save you and to guide you. So when your brand is built on looks, shock value, and male approval, you're much more likely to pivot for profit. You're much more likely to avoid accountability, just like how both of these women, whether covertly with Amber or overtly with Nicki, are apologists and protectors of violent men. You'll also say whatever sells so that you can make a quarter, right? These are people who don't stop to think about what evolution looks without erasure. And that's a very, very dangerous way to move through the world. The spiritual cost of selling your people out is also not small. Somebody, I think it may have been Johnny, I don't remember, one of you guys wrote about the ancestors in one of the comments. But wealth that's gained by harming your community is not clean money. And that's why it does not stick. That's why it won't stay with you, right? You cannot pray away betrayal. You really can't. Same way that you can't pray the gay away. You can't pray away betrayal. You just can't. And here's the thing. I don't think that either of these women have the deepest relationship with their ancestors. And when you don't have collective support, either in the people who live around you or your ancestry, you lose protection. That's just a thing that happens, right? When you break covenant with your people, you break spiritual covering. I'm going to say that again. When you break covenant with your people, you break spiritual covering. So both of these women are not, even though that Trinidadian lady loves to throw Jesus's name around, neither of these women have deep spiritual covering. And you can see it in how they show up in the world, right? So what are some of the warnings that we can benefit from as everyday regular people? What can we learn from this? How can we protect ourselves so that, we don't put ourselves in the same position? Because I love y'all. I love us for real, in the words of Monique. But some of us, and I'm using the collective language liberally because this is a collective conversation, some of us will sell ourselves out short for a fucking $5 an hour promotion. I've seen people play themselves for less. I've seen people sell themselves out just to literally be invited to a table, literally to have access to a dinner, just to be in the room where it happens, right? So what do we need to understand about this so that we don't betray ourselves and we don't play ourselves in the bigger scheme of things, right? We need to never confuse visibility with power. And this is a big mistake that a lot of people make. I've been parts of organizations who've done this in the past, who assume that just because they had big platforms or a lot of eyes on them, that somehow made them more powerful than other people. Power and visibility are not the same thing. Money and visibility ain't even the same thing. I know a lot of people who have big audiences are broke as fuck, right? Never confuse money with safety. You can be rich and vulnerable, especially when you sell your community short, right? Also, never confuse male approval with protection. Never confuse male approval with protection. I grew up in a community around pimps. I don't talk about it a lot, but I did. Also in a sorority. So I spent a lot of time around fraternity and sorority culture. Having male approval, being desired under the male gaze, has absolutely nothing to do with protection. In fact, it makes you even more vulnerable. And that's a mistake that pick-me's make. They think that just because they can find a way to be desired, that they somehow have extra protection. And then it's not until they are the person at the intersections or they're the person that's being crossed over that they realize that's not true. We're all smart. All of us who are watching this, either live or in a replay, we're smart people. So we're not going to make those mistakes. We're not going to conflate male approval with protection. Because men, unless they actively do the work of breaking the misogynist within them, they see most women as disposable, whether they are attracted to them or not. So never ever conflate. Never confuse male approval with protection. Okay? And again, I wanted us to have this conversation because it's really easy to make fun of them, to dismiss them. But when we look at these patterns, we probably see people who do this all the time in our everyday lives. Some of us may have been, bird-brained enough to engage in these behaviors at one point, whether we were younger or we just felt very vulnerable in our careers, whatever. But we're learning, right? So I do want to give you all some final questions before we wrap up, right? Who profits when women abandon collective politics? Right? If you are a woman and you think that it is wise to abandon your collective politics, who does that benefit? Who does that serve? Does it even really serve you in the way that you want to believe it does? Who does it serve when you abandon collective politics, okay? What happens when the audience stops clapping, right? It was cute when Nicki Minaj was running around dressed like a prostitute toddler for the first 10 years of her career. And everybody egged her on. Harajuku Barbie this, Then when people got tired and stopped clapping, she didn't know what to do with herself. When people looked at her and said, okay, you're in your 40s now, you're a mother, can you give us something else? She lashed out and got upset because she didn't have anything else, right? So what happens when the audience stops clapping? Do you have a sense of self and a personal identity that you can rely on? Or are you so reliant on external validation that you flip out and you lose it? Because how dare people stop clapping for me, right? Can you build wealth without betraying your people? We already know the answer to that one. And if you think it's no, please go spend some time at your altar. You can absolutely make money without betraying your people. Okay? So those are the big points that I wanted to talk about in regards to this topic. If anyone else has anything that they want to contribute or want to say, I'm more than happy to hear it. As always, whenever we do happy hour, I'll offer a themed reading based on the topic. So I have the self-betrayal tarot spread, right? And this is a spread that is designed to show areas of your life where you may engage in self-betrayal and give you a little bit of wisdom, a little bit of medicine around how to break that pattern of self-betrayal, okay? So if anyone would like the self-betrayal reading, go ahead and send a love offering. I'm happy to do the reading for you. If not, then we can just continue to chat a little bit and then I'll wrap up for the night, okay? But while I'm waiting for people to decide whether or not they want a reading, I'm going to go ahead and update you guys on a few things. So the first thing I want to update you guys on is I know that I typically go live on Sundays. I think my lives are amazing, but I don't think that I can compete with the Super Bowl. So we're going to do this week's weekly energy reading on Monday night at 7:30 instead of Sunday night at 7:30, okay? So I know some of you guys are used to seeing me on Sunday night. This week, we're going to do it Monday. Go ahead, eat your wings, hang out with your family, watch Bad Bunny be cute. And then we will have the reading on Monday night. Okay, so I just want to put that out there for people who may be used to seeing me Sunday. We're going to bump it a day ahead or a day past what we typically do so that way people have time for the Super Bowl. Okay. There are only 4 days left to book your forecast readings. The reading will not be available after February 8th, okay? There are a couple of people that asked me privately to reserve a spot for them after the 8th, but those are people who paid for it and they're just going to do their readings later, right? After the 8th, I have to take it off the website. I can't, this is a limited time reading, so if you know that you want your forecast, but you have not booked yet, please go ahead and try to make sure that you book your forecast reading before 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, all right? Because after that, it won't be available anymore, all right? We do have some other offerings that are discounted for the month of February. So every February, Black History Month, Ancestral Life Path readings go on sale. So if you have not gotten an Ancestral Life Path reading or you want to get a new one, now's a great time. They are on sale for $85. And if you use the code LOVE, LOVE, at checkout, you will receive an additional 20% off, okay? It's also the Valentine's Day sale going on, so everything related to love, glamour, and attraction on my website is discounted. So erotic power sessions are $85. Love and romance readings are $85. Synastry readings are $100. All of my love and romance classes are marked down between $22 and $44, okay? If you want to purchase any of those things and you want to receive an additional discount, you can use the love discount, LOVE, towards that, all right? Last two updates, and then I'll take questions for people who have them, I promise. Cord cutting ritual, February 15th. Deadline to sign up for that is February 14th, okay? The cost is $33.33 unless you are participating in Rich Spirit. And if you are, then the cost is $11.11, okay? If you know that you have negative attachments that are draining your energy, clouding your vision, preventing you from moving forward, I definitely recommend this cord cutting ritual. It is a one-day ritual. We have a 2 to 4 p.m. EST Zoom meeting. And then after that, you have a set of instructions around creating a spiritual bath and doing some work on your own to break those cords and remove blockages. February 16th through the 19th is Rich Spirit. That is my 4-day prosperity ritual that allows you to bring in great wealth and transformative change, okay? If you want to sign up for either of those, click the links below to join the intake groups and get some more information, okay? Chantel wants the happy hour reading, which is the self-betrayal reading. I got you, Chantel. I think someone else sent an offering too. So let me see who this is. Okay. Nicole, okay, hold on a second. Johnny, did you want a reading as well? Johnny, let me know if you wanted a reading. So I'm going to do Chantel, Nicole, and then Johnny if Johnny wants a reading. And if there's anyone else that would like a reading, go ahead and send your 1111 love offering so that way I can get to you. But we're going to start with Chantel first. Okay. Ancestors, angels, the master spirits that walk with me, my elevated ancestors. What wisdom does Chantel need about patterns of self-betrayal in her life? Who or where did she learn to engage in self-betrayal? What has been the impact and how does she break it? Any wisdom shared is deeply appreciated. You're good. I knew what you meant. I knew this wasn't Astral Hour. We'll be doing Astral Hour next week so that way we can prepare for the new moon as well as some of the late February transits. But This is happy hour. It's okay. They happen on the same day. So I can understand how you can get them mixed up. It's all right. So the first question around who built you or where did it come from looks at the foundation of your patterns of self-betrayal. And this asks what community, energy, or labor made you feel like you had to betray yourself. Where did you learn these patterns? Interesting card, 7 of Wands. For you, the self-betrayal is about thinking that you don't have support. You have always been somebody who has had to fight, who has had to stand up against other people's either lack of belief or trust in what you were going after. It's like you over-explain a lot, right? And that over-explaining or that ability to get distracted in defending your choices instead of just standing in your choices has shown up as a form of self-betrayal, okay? In position 2, which looks at the compromise, which asks, what have you traded for this? What was sacrificed, right? We have the 3 of Wands, right? So you've low-key, a lot of this time that you spend over-explaining and defending your decisions to people who you shouldn't even give a fuck what they think about it, it has robbed you of time that you could be spending moving forward, making ground, traveling, engaging in expansion. So what it's cost you and what you've compromised is personal expansion, okay? Now, in the position of the consequence, the long-term cost of engaging in this particular pattern of self-betrayal, we have the King of Cups, right? King of Cups in their alignment is a compassionate leader. And it is somebody who has a lot of good emotional regulation. But in its debilitation, it is somebody who is very codependent. And it's not codependent in the way that the Queen of Cups is, where it's like she's clingy physically. It's codependent in having a hard time making your own decisions, having a hard time trusting your own decisions. In one of my classes, when I talk about debilitated King of Cups, I compare them to Homer Simpson, right? And I haven't watched The Simpsons in a long time, but I remember watching it growing up, and it was almost like Homer always needed Marge to bail him out of something because he couldn't trust his own decision making, right? So for you, you got to stop the over-explaining. It's an act of self-betrayal. It's cost you an ability to move forward and have expansion in your life clearly and unapologetically. And it is the consequence is that it has made you somebody who doesn't really trust yourself to stand in your own power emotionally. You give away a lot of your emotional power. Let me know if that resonates with you, Chantel. Okay? We will do Johnny next and then Nicole. And if there's anyone else that would like the self-betrayal reading, let me know. Ancestors, angels, ascended masters, spirits that walk with me, my elevated ancestors. What does Johnny need to know about their patterns of self-betrayal? What can you highlight as the pattern of self-betrayal? How it shows up and what it costs them. Any wisdom shared is deeply appreciated. Okay, I'm going to do Johnny's next, and then I'll do yours. Right now, there's no one else that's asking. So I'll do yours after Johnny unless somebody else submits an offering and requests it. Okay? And we'll talk more about that in your forecast, Chantel, because we still need to do your forecast reading. I'm going to switch decks because some of the same cards came up, and I think that's because I've used Afro Anime quite a bit today, and so it's probably tired. So we'll do Tarot of Divine for you, Johnny. Ancestors, angels, ascended masters, spirits that walk with me, elevated ancestors. What can we learn about Johnny's patterns of self-betrayal? How do they show up and what do they cost her? Any wisdom shared is deeply appreciated. If there is anyone else that would like a self-betrayal reading, go ahead and send in your love offering, and I will get to you after Johnny. Nicole has requested to be the last reading, so okay. You're not gonna like what I have to say, Johnny. But I know you love me and you respect me, so you'll listen. So in the position of the foundation, the community, energy, or environment that made you first engage in self-betrayal or accept, who helped you build your patterns of self-betrayal, you betray yourself in your romances and partnerships a lot, right? You have a false belief that overgiving will bring you love in a really particular way. And that's your pattern of self-betrayal. So rather than calling in reciprocal, even like egalitarian relationships, you call in relationships where either you give too much or as retaliation from the people that you are upset with that you've given too much of in the past, you take too much, right? So your relationships, instead of being like really reciprocal, tend to be, there's a lot of drain that comes, right? That's where a lot of the self-betrayal shows up. In the position of the compromise, what you traded for in this thing, what you sacrificed in terms of this particular pattern of self-betrayal, what it sacrifices, we have the Ace of Pentacles, right? So there's a part of you that doesn't trust when people try to give you things because of that experience of the lack of reciprocity in your relationships. You're deeply suspicious of people who try to pour into you just for pouring into you's sake. So when you get windfall, when you get unexpected blessings, instead of seeing them as a relief, you panic because you're like, what the fuck is that, right? So there's a lack of trust there. In the position of the consequence, the long-term cost of these particular choices, we have the Moon. So there's just a lot of illusion. You spend a lot of time hiding your intentions, hiding from other people's intentions, not really wanting to be seen clearly, right? You have a deep fear of being seen. And it's because in those most intimate relationships where you really wanted to be seen and you overgave, thinking that that would allow you to be seen, it didn't work out that way, okay? So that is the pattern of self-betrayal for you. Pray for me. Girl, pray for all of us. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect, but I hope that that gave you some answers and that that resonated for you. Nicole, no one else is signing up, so I'm going to go ahead and end with you and then wrap up for the night, which is totally fine because it's hair day, and I got to get to that. So, ancestors, angels, ascended masters, spirits that walk with me, my elevated ancestors, what wisdom does Nicole need about patterns of self-betrayal? If she engages in self-betrayal, highlight those patterns tonight so that she can see them clearly and change, break these patterns, and have forward movement. Any wisdom shared is deeply appreciated. You are very welcome, and I'm glad that it resonated for you. Glad that that resonated for you. All right, Nicole, we're going to look into you and your pattern of self-betrayal. Again, if you are still here, I want to give you a gentle reminder. I will not be going live on Sunday. Sunday is Bad Bunny Bowl, and I will not be competing with the Super Bowl. I love my readings. I think that they are powerful, but I don't have NFL money, so I will not be competing with the Super Bowl. Enjoy your wings, enjoy your family time, and be back here Monday night. Not Sunday this week, Monday night at 7:30 for the weekly energy reading, okay? All right. So for you, Nicole, in the position of the foundation or how this came to be, the community, energy, or environmental choices that led you to these certain beliefs, right? We have the Four of Wands in reverse. So home may not have been the most stable environment for you, right? You actually may have had elders or people around you that engaged in a lot of manipulative behavior. They may have changed their own opinions based on the wind. They may have had somebody that they loved vehemently one day and then couldn't stand the next, right? So that lack of stability that you witnessed very on in your foundational environment literally plays a role in how you engage in self-betrayal as an adult, okay? Now, in terms of the compromise, what may have been sacrificed in order to gain, right? What you exchanged for this in terms of self-betrayal, we have the High Priestess. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is not inherently negative. It comes from a negative place, and the work is to be able to embrace this as fully positive. Again, because you may not have had some of the most stable elders around you, and you witnessed them not have the most stable ethics, right? And that taught you a lot about people's capacity for betrayal. It made you hyper dependent on your own intuition and your own connection to spirit and your own ability to like read the tea leaves. I think the impact or the consequence, the compromise that it's led to in your life is that you spent a lot of your time feeling like you couldn't really trust other people, that you had to be spiritually self-led. And again, when our intuition is harnessed in a healthy way, that's a beautiful thing. But when it is a trauma response, it can lead to hyper independence, right? In the position of the consequence, which is the long-term cost of this choice, you are literally still working on having faith in people, Nicole. I think it's one of those things where logically, you know that there are good people in the world, right? You have people that you've met over time. Spirit is saying me, and I feel arrogant for saying that, but if I am one of those people you feel that way about, then I know that I love you too, and I'm not gonna cry. Why am I so sensitive? I hate it. You've met people that you think are really, really good, and that keeps your faith going, but it is a constant work for you, right? Where you have to actively work to have faith in the goodness of people. Let me know if that resonated with you. Let me know if that made sense. Thank you all for chatting with me tonight, for indulging me around this topic. I hope that this conversation was fun for you all. I've been debating on having this conversation for a long time because I think it's an interesting one. I low-key have bets going with some of my friends because it's going to be interesting to see who the next baddie to conservative mule kind of person is. I don't even want to say who my guesses are. One of them was famously left a podcast a few months ago. I'll just say it that way. But it'll be really interesting to see how it shows up. It's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse, especially right now with the economy being what it is. But we let them do what they do and we do what we do. So I just really want to encourage all of us to stand in our power, to stand in our integrity, to make sure that we have ethics that we care about and that we are guided strongly by those ethics. Don't let nobody tokenize you. Don't let nobody buy you. Sometimes money can be cheap when it comes from the wrong place. And I promise you there are ways to make money that do not involve you betraying yourself, okay? I love you all. Have a great Super Bowl Sunday, and I will see you all Monday night. If you want to join for Rich Spirit, hit the link below. If you want to join the cord cutting, hit the link below. If you have not booked your forecast reading, hit the link below. I will see you all Monday. Take care. Bye.